Hello everyone. I hope you have been learning from our videos and been sharing the content with all the people who are interested in learning cloud technology. So if you had seen a previous video, we spoke about how you can scan objects in S3 using the new service Guardduty for malware, where you could put a file and it is out of the box setup, and AWS takes care of it at the back end where you will be able to scan the files. So today I wanted to provide a comparison about another option, which is cloud storage security, because before Guardduty we used to scan files as well. Guardduty is a new service for malware, but this was one popular service that we deployed in a lot of customer places. So I wanted to provide a comparison of both these options so you know what exactly is the current limitation of S3 for malware and where the other services fall short. Please like, subscribe, share the channel. With that, let's get started. What we are going to do, the way the sequence is, I'll go over the architecture of S3 for malware, and then I'll go over the architecture for cloud storage security. After that, go into a little bit of GUI of how exactly the setup of cloud storage security is. In terms of, I'll go into the console, show up the setup in the cluster that is there, the queues that are set up, and how the scanning is done for multi-region. Then what I'll do is I'll show a comparison of the features as well as the cost comparison. So this diagram, it shows the architecture of Guardduty malware, wherein if you would have seen a previous video of like a customer, or there's a customer account we set up, and in that what we have to do is we would be kind of having out of the box setting. There is not much, but the customer uploads a file to a S3 bucket, which would trigger an event that will be picked up by event bridge rule. And now what this is showing is a little more like multi-account setup, but even if you have it at one account, it is the same setup that you would be sending it to malware scan service, which is Guardduty, and that will in turn be able to tell you whether the tag is going to be placed on the object to say that, okay, was it scanned or not scanned. And in subsequent video, what I'll do is I'll also show you how to capture that tag if an object has a malware on it. So that is where I'll go into detail. But today's I just wanted to focus on the comparison between S3 for malware and cloud storage security. So this is the architecture, very simplistic architecture, wherein you put an object, an event is going to be generated, the malware service for Guardduty is going to scan it, and then the object is going to be tagged. So pretty simplistic. Next, we'll go into the architecture of cloud storage security. So before I go into cloud storage security, let me show you what exactly is the service I'm talking about. So if you go to AWS Marketplace, what you could do is you could come here and you could just search for storage security. This is the first one that will pop up, cloud storage security. We have deployed this solution in a lot of our customers, and we found this to be a pretty good option because it does have like scanning with multiple tools, which is Sophos, as well as other options are there, and I'll go into that in the comparison. And this is where, like before S3 for malware, which is a decent service. In fact, Azure, as of now, it has Defender, but even Azure didn't provide that option. So which is where this third-party tool is something that you all should be aware of in terms of scanning and your options that are there. So let me now go into the architecture of cloud storage security. And before I go, what you can do is you can just kind of click here, do a free trial, and you can see the architecture for yourself. But this is again not for an individual setup, it's mostly for enterprise setup. So that is where you just want to ensure, because it is going to spin up a few resources. So this diagram shows the architecture of cloud storage security, wherein they use ECS, which is Elastic Container Service, similar to Kubernetes service. It's AWS native service, and it uses Fargate. Fargate again is something similar to a VM, but instance is managed by AWS. It's a managed service of VMs. So what they do is they would be kind of creating this ECS cluster, and I'll go into the console and show you the setup. But the cluster is here, and they would be having a console service, which is a nice dashboard that they provide in terms of where you could kind of do the configuration of which buckets you want scanned, the regions, what you wanted scanned, the agents that need to be set up. So pretty much a lot of the setting is done out of the box. And that is where you'll be having another event service as well, apart from console service. This is the one that scans the instances based upon the objects put. And this is, you could kind of have a schedule scan, and this is all done from the console, as well as you have an API endpoint scan. So the way the architecture is that when you put an object in S3, what it is going to do is it is going to create an event over here, and once an event is created, it is going to push the message to the event queue. So now if you put a lot of objects on the S3 bucket, there will be those many corresponding messages on the queue that will be published. And once the messages are there on the queue, that is when the event service is going to be auto-scaling based on the number of messages. If there are one message, it'll be one instance would be spun up, and that is the configuration you need to do. We did it for a lot of our customers, but you would need to set it up so that it's able to process the messages and scan based upon the scanning algorithm you want. And whatever is the output of the setup, it's also there in DynamoDB, but also the CloudWatch is there. Now, Cognito is used for logging into the console, which is where the Cognito is set up. But this is a pretty simple. You will need to do this event setup for each region you want it to be done. And similar to S3 malware, that you will have to do it for each region. I've not got into detail because there is a lot of, if you go to the marketplace and click on the link to view the documentation, you will find a lot of this, and this diagram is taken from there itself. You can go there and read about if you're interested about using this particular product as well. So with that said, I'll go into the next part and show you how this cloud storage security looks like. So this is where I'm in the console. Let me just zoom in. And as you can see, there is a cluster that is created. And if I go into the cluster, what I will see is I will have two agent services that are going to be there. One is the agent, which is used to scan the files that are placed. The second one is the console, which is a GUI setup where you can do the configuration. So this is a nice architecture that they have in place where you can kind of have separate service for the console, separate service for the agent as well, set up as part of that. Now, another thing in the architecture, as you would recall, is there is a queue. And this is where the queue is set up. As of now, you see there are 0 messages but once I start putting the objects in the file, the number of messages would increase. For multi-region, now I'm in London region. If you see, this is in Virginia. So for London as well, the cluster is going to be separate. But in this case, I'll only have one agent service. I'm not going to have the console because the console is specific to is only one. I need to put it for the whole account setup. So that is the one nice benefit. You don't need to have separate GUIs that are there. So, and even like if I have multiple regions, I will have to have this account agent setup as part of that. And the deployment is pretty simple. What they have provided is they have provided CloudFormation scripts. And to view more details about CloudFormation, you can check out the video we had done best practices on how to use CloudFormation. But they have provided CloudFormation, so you could go about creating the stack using that approach as well. So with this, let's get into the comparison where I have Guardduty malware protection for S3, and I have this cloud storage security, which is powered by, there are two options which are there. One is Sophos, and the other one you could use is ClamAV. Sophos is a little more sophisticated scanning engine, and ClamAV is little more, it's the basic scanning engine, which could suffice for most organizations. So the first thing is, what is the maximum S3 object size? Now these features that are there is at the time of this recording. It could be that eventually if you see this video after say 6 months or even a year, Guardduty for malware for S3 may have updated the features or limitations. So which is where please read the manual and the documentation to ensure this is still up to date. But as of this recording, these are the comparison. Their maximum S3 object size is 5 GB for now. You could only scan a 5 GB object. While if it is for cloud storage security, you could do 5 terabyte if it is for Sophos, while ClamAV it is 2 GB. What is the maximum extracted archive size? For the archive, it's similar, 5 GB. And for Sophos, it is unlimited, which is, it depends on the amount of the disk that you attach. So pretty, for large size files that organizations do have, that is something beneficial for cloud storage security. And then maximum number of files in an archive, you can have 1,000 files in an archive, because if it's an archived file, like malware is going to be only able to scan only 1,000 files, while cloud storage security can scan unlimited. Same for both ClamAV and for Sophos. What is the maximum depth level? For the archive, it could kind of go nested, which is 5 level deep it can go for malware, while Sophos and ClamAV, you see it is 100 and 160 respectively. Again, this can help large organizations which have 2 deep nested zip file or archived files which are uploaded. What is the file scanning limit? This is a hard limit for S3 for malware. It's only 25 files per region per account. Per region. Cannot go beyond 25 regions, and this is something that the AWS team is looking into, but this is a hard limit for now. For cloud storage security, there's no limit, and essentially like if an S3 bucket has event notification configured, then real-time scanning will not be enabled as the queue is already in use. But essentially, for your perspective, you can consider is that there is no limit for scanning the number of files, while in S3, you can only provide 25 buckets that you can provide. And what is the detection engine? For Guardduty, it is Bitdefender. While for cloud storage security, you can choose Sophos and ClamAV. Sophos is popular. Bitdefender is also popular, but I think Sophos has a lot more community outreach compared to Bitdefender. And these are the other options that are there. I like essentially real-time file scanning is there for all, but scheduled bucket scanning is something it's not currently there. Neither is on-demand bucket scanning, on-demand file scanning, on-access file scanning. It is currently not there in S3 for malware. And are you able to scan encrypted files? Essentially, this is something that we still haven't seen yet. means it's a little more setup needs to be done. But the opinion is that yes, we should be able to scan it. While in Sophos, currently it's no, you can't scan some files that are encrypted. So this is a limitation of Sophos. But for S3 for malware, we haven't been able to do it. But based upon AWS and the nativity that it provides with the CMKs and KMS, don't think that should be an issue. Regarding the operation, this is a no-op service. It's a managed service. There is no deployment that is required. It is an out-of-the-box setting. While for Sophos and ClamAV, there is an operation work because there are clusters spun. There are queues. You will have to monitor the queue depth. All those monitoring will need to come in picture. You will have to take care of the cost management aspect as well. So keep this in mind when using cloud storage security. What is the mitigation, right? So in terms of tagging, you can provide tags which are there. It can move the bucket to each another region if required. Reporting, this is something we need to explore how we can do it, and this is something I can try putting it in the next videos, that we will have to kind of create our own custom reports using the data that we will be getting from the scanning. The cloud storage security, it provides out of the bucket reporting as well. And similarly, dashboard, we need to check how we can kind of use the option. But in cloud storage security, the dashboard is out of the box. And integration with Security Hub, it's there for all three. And the developer setup, Event Bridge integration is there, while and ClamAV doesn't have Event Bridge integration, but it does have SNS integration. So this is where SNS integration is there for all three. And CloudWatch metric integration, it is also there for all three. So with this, I hope you are able to get a nice comparison of using S3 for malware and cloud storage security, where currently what we have found is we were limited by the number of buckets that could be scanned by S3 for malware, which is only 25, and the file size is also sometimes a limitation. Well, not many customers upload 5 GB, so we didn't come across this limitation to be such big of an issue. But 25 buckets, yes, because many organizations in a region will for sure have more than 25 buckets that need to be scanned. Now, this provides the cost option. Now, which one is better to use? Because cost is in cloud computing is one of the pillars in which you need to base an architecture. So in terms of scanning, the Guardduty malware protection for S3, it is 0.6 per GB and it is $0.215 per 1,000 objects. So the pricing, it depends on region, and right, this is where what we can do with this maths is what I've tried to put here. And cloud storage security, it is 0.8 per GB, which is a little higher than S3 for malware, and the number and the additional pricing is 0.025 per vCPU hour. But if you're not using Sophos as a scanning engine, you're just using ClamAV, you don't need to pay the 0.80. You can use the 0.025 per vCPU hour. And that is where I need to really see, is Bitdefender as good as Sophos to pay the higher price for this setup? The infrastructure, what is there? It's a pretty straightforward setup. In fact, there is not much infrastructure that you need to manage. It's all managed by AWS. But nonetheless, the infrastructure is S3, Event Bridge, and Guardduty. While cloud storage security, it is S3, EC2, EBS, SNS, SQS, CloudWatch. So a lot of the infrastructure will need to be managed as part of the cloud storage security, while for S3 for malware, it is pretty much, there's next to no infrastructure that you need to manage. So this is where for large workload, and this is a math that is there, where you can scan around 500,000 files per day with an average size of file of 1 MB. That results in around 15 million files and 15,000 GB per month. And the objects are going to be tagged with scanned results. And the region is Virginia. So this is where the math is provided, that the cost of this is going to be around $12,000 for scanning these much files which are there. And compared to the other one, it should be $32.25. But again, the cost for Fargate, we couldn't put it. But I think it's going to be the same cost for Fargate, because these many files in SQS is going to have certain the same amount of charge. And if it is a small workload, that is there, 20,000 files per day with an average size of 5 MB, it's going to be 600,000 files, which is around 3,000 GB per month. And the cost is going to be similar. So both of these, what we have seen is the cost is not that much of a difference, even though cloud storage security seems to portray that cost is going to be a major difference where they are cheaper compared to S3 for malware. But in our experience, we haven't seen that yet, that it's kind of a big difference yet. So with this, I think I was able to provide you a good comparison, S3 for malware and the other scanning option, which is cloud storage security. So please feel free to use this data. This data is also going to be part of a blog that you can go and take the comparison from. Please like, subscribe, share the channel, and spread the knowledge of cloud computing. Thank you and have a good day.